One-foot-flipper.
So today, my buddy ADH Dave, he released an entire half-hour video basically about what it's like for him to work with back pain. I know back pain. I also know some other things as well. Let's talk about them. Now, I'm not trying to minimize Dave's pain in any way. I know that's probably difficult for him, but I'd like to go through what things are like for me. I don't tend to be a huge complainer about what's personally going on with me. At least I don't think I am. But let's go through my reality. We'll start with the nighttime. Ever since I had the leg cut off, the amputation, for whatever reason, my body does not want to pee during the daytime. At all. But once I go to sleep, it's like my body says, yes, time for you to go. I will wake up to pee about 8 times a night. And I'll only finally get some decent sleep after my wife gets up to go to work. I don't know if that actually has anything to do with her. I think that's just about that time is when I've run out of pee. And so I need to be in bed for 10 hours most days. I can get up early to go to garage sales any given day, sure. I'll be fine, just like you would if you suddenly only got 4 hours of sleep one night, but otherwise we're getting fine. But I can't do it every day. And for some reason, I can manage to pee 8 times in one night, regardless of the amount of liquid I drank during that daytime. During that day, doesn't matter. Now, as you may know, I do have an artificial leg, but I don't wear it inside the house because it doesn't make any sense to wear in the house because it just gets in the way of everything. My house is very small, 4 steps, there's only a few steps between any 2 given places, and sitting down and standing up with the artificial leg is actually a big deal, and I just can't stand up for hours at a time, so wearing it doesn't make any sense. Plus, my fake knee is like 6 or 7 inches lower than my real knee. And I have no control over that, swinging leg at the bottom when I'm sitting down. So it gets in the way of everything. I just can't functionally work with the thing on. It's hard to even, I can't even use my computer desk with my leg on. And the leg doesn't reach the ground when I'm sitting. What that does is it makes that 20-pound leg, it puts all the weight of it on the end of my stump as I'm sitting. And that becomes incredibly painful after a few hours of having it on. The only exception is when I'm somehow in a situation in where the leg isn't hanging free. Like if I'm driving, it's never hanging free. I can drive for hours at a time. At that point, I actually get my other pain problem because I had various infections when I was in the hospital, and one of them drilled a huge hole right below the base of my spine, right above the butt crack. And that's still there. It's healed, but depending on what I'm sitting on or how long I'm sitting, that can be extremely painful on its own. And I've talked to the doctors about it. It's the danger of trying to close that up is apparently not worth the risk. It would take a series of small operations to try to close it up, each one of which would have a big risk of infection. So I'm just stuck with that extra butthole for the rest of my life. Where was I going? Oh, yeah. I guess I can drive for a few hours at a time. Actually, I think I drove for 16 hours once when I got my truck. One of the most painful days of my life. The most painful day of... I'm not even going to get into that. I'm just going to skip that. So, in the house, I do everything in the wheelchair or while hopping or balancing on one leg. Now, you would think having one leg would make balancing on one leg easier, right? Because I get so much practice doing it. That's not actually the case. It's much harder to balance on one leg when you only have one leg because you don't have that big, long counterweight of that other leg to balance you. Instead, you're balancing with just the top half of that, which doesn't have nearly as much ability to help stabilize you, and you're doing most of the balancing with your upper body. It's quite strange. Hey, if you've made it this far, could you hit that subscribe button? I mean, half of the people watching this aren't subscribed, and I'm mostly in it for this to see that sub number go up. I mean, it's not like I'm going to be climbing any mountains anytime soon. Yeah, I know some other people with one legs get to climb mountains, but I don't, so that's okay. And a lot of times I'm balancing on one leg while trying to get a very heavy tub up onto a top shelf or down from a top shelf. It is quite dicey. Somehow I've never had a big incident doing that, but I've had a few close calls. Now, I have all of Dave's back pain, all of what he describes, but I don't have the frequent chiropractic visits, or actually any chiropractic visits. I've never seen a chiropractor. I have a dislike of the profession because most chiropractors will also claim to be able to treat non-back injuries with back adjustments, and that's not something I believe in. If you believe in that and it works for you, that's great. I don't think it's science myself. So, my house, which is still very small, but it has a main level, a finished attic, and a basement. The main level is what we're on right now. That is largely composed of, the largest room is the listing room, which we're in right now. There's the little bitty kitchen and dining room area, and the two bedrooms, both of which are small. Julie's bedroom is actually more like a closet than it is a bedroom. In fact, back when I did construction and was installing shelves in houses, there were quite a few closets in master bedrooms that were larger than Julie's bedroom is. All right, now, get around my house. I have a wheelchair on this level, and I have a wheelchair in the basement. I don't have a wheelchair in the attic, where the living room is. To move between these floors, I go up and down the steps on my butt. And it's very hard for me to move any decent amount of items from one floor to another. It is. And if I have to go upstairs, there's not another wheelchair up there because there's not room for one. I just am really limited to scooting across the floor, which is also extremely difficult to do when you only have one leg. You think practice would make it easier, but it doesn't. So, yeah, that's the home life. Let's actually leave the house. I do have a prosthetic leg, but I have not had a 100% functional prosthetic leg in well over 2 years now. I got a brand new one beginning of the year. I spent $8,000. My insurance spent, I think, another $15,000 on a new one, and it had a wobble in the knee directly from the manufacturer. They gave me a loaner, which was brand new. It had the same wobble. I got my supposedly repaired leg back last week, and within 100 steps of walking, it had developed the same wobble. Now, honestly, this wobble isn't the biggest thing in the world, but it affects my confidence in the leg, and I have to walk slightly different because of it. And I know it doesn't have to be there, because my first leg did not have a wobble in the knee. Basically, it can move. Oh, let's just go get it. It can freely move about 5 or 6 degrees with zero effort put on it. And it shouldn't be able to move at all without force. And that's the issue. See, walking with a prosthetic knee is not like normal walking. I'm not walking like you. I had to be trained to learn how to do it. It's actually a continuous tightrope act in which any wrong step is going to cause that knee to buckle in, collapse, and throw you to the ground. Basically, I have to land on the heel all the time of my foot, and I have to have it far enough out, kind of, or otherwise the whole thing will buckle in. I'm not sure why they haven't defeated this problem by now. They do have some robotic ones now that are much better, but they don't really make those for fat people. Or if they do, good luck getting the insurance to approve them, because fat people are mobile enough, so they don't need a good leg, right? And that is a real issue. I am, at my prosthetics company, I've heard both from my guy and several of his assistants that there is nobody they have in my weight range that's as active as I am. I'm the single most active fat guy that they have, or gal, that they have in the entire company, which, you know, services most everybody in the greater St. Louis area who has a fake leg. All right, get lost here. So, doing the tightrope act. And, you know, I can't walk down the slightest downward slope without walking sideways or locking my knee into like this peg leg mode where it can't bend. But walking with a locked knee is incredibly stressful on the back. That knee bending reduces the amount of pressure on your back because the amount of force needed to lift a locked foot at the end is much higher than if the knee naturally bends as you walk. So if you walk in that way, the back pain starts building up extremely fast. And needless to say, stairs are very dangerous and painful, particularly going down. Up's not as bad because the kind of steps you make on up are unlikely to make you fall, and if you do fall, you just fall onto the steps. However, downward puts you in the kind of steps where you're much more likely to fall, and, well, you know, you ever fall face down a flight of steps? I never fell face down a flight of steps, but I've fallen face first off of 3 steps multiple times since I've lost this leg. And downward stairs with no railings are terrifying to navigate if they're normal, relatively close together steps. Like my porch is 3 steps down, but they're all massively long, so it's and I'm really used to it, so that's not bad, even though there's no railing. But if they're much closer together, oh, that's terrifying. I have to walk sideways the entire time, and ugh. But hey, I still get to walk, right? Yeah. I can walk from the handicap parking space to the electric scooters in the front of the large stores. That is my general safe, I can do it every time walking distance. Once I start walking further than that, the back pain quickly starts to get worse and worse until each step the muscles are threatening to misbehave and throw me to the ground. I have to maintain very good control over my right side, which is this side missing the leg, in order to be able to walk and continue to stand. In fact, last summer, it might have been the summer before, Julie had an art camp. We send her to several art camps every year. She enjoys it. Matter of fact, if you'd like to help send Julie to art camp, put in some super chats or join the membership or whatever. That's what I spend. I spend that money on Julie's art camps. As opposed to, I don't know what other resellers who have YouTube videos do with it. Assuming they spend it all on cocaine and swinger parties. Or who knows. I've seen other people instantly buy their child a new Switch via super chats. That must be nice. Okay, sorry, on a tangent. Not jealous of those guys. More wishing I could get to that level. So, art camp. On the last day, I actually had to come inside to see her artwork in the display. Couldn't get a close parking spot. All the handicap spots were taken. Turns out her class was on the 2nd floor. There's no elevators in this building. This building has really high ceilings, so it was almost like climbing up to a 3rd floor. And then, of course, where is her class? Why, it is at the very end of this extremely long building. Somehow, I get there without collapsing. I see her artwork, tell her how proud I am of her and everything else. Then it takes us a solid hour to get out of the building. Normal person would have been 2 or 3 minutes. At several points, I had considered calling an ambulance or the police or something else to help me get out of the building. Because I just couldn't move. Couldn't walk far enough without collapsing, but I finally did it, including having to slide down the steps in public on my butt. That was nice. And, yeah, eventually got out of the building. Eventually managed to make it from the front door of the building to my vehicle and get home. Now, after that incident, I do carry a spare wheelchair with me in my vehicle all the time, so I can get that out in situations where I feel like I might have to walk far. But that was a personal little nightmare. I know what you're saying, but Paige, you're a big fat ass. Lose some weight. I agree. Things would be much easier if I lost weight. Very much easier. But there is actually a problem with that. If you start losing weight, your prosthetic leg stops fitting. And if it stops fitting, I got to get this part, this top half part that's fitted to me, remade. Guess how much that costs? That's around $6,000. And I pay 100% of that. Since $6,000 doesn't hit the deductible on my insurance, and insurance will only cover one of those every 2 years. I'd have to go through 6 to 8 of those to get down to the weight that where I really need to be. Do you have $48,000 to spend on top halves of prosthetic legs? I don't. And worst part is I'd probably even have to not submit most of them to the insurance, otherwise I'd waste the ones that they would pay for, because they, yep, we covered this, we didn't pay anything, but hey, you got one, so we're not going to pay our part for another 2 years. Because if I actually get a whole new leg in 1 year, that actually lets me hit that deductible and max out of pocket all that, and they actually pay for something at that point, which we did this year. You know, got to pay a nice $8,000 plus the $500 a month that my insurance costs. All right, where was I? Oh, hey, other pickers, they talk about going to a whole bunch of garage sales in one day, 10, 15 of them, you know, garage sailing from 6 a.m. till noon. I can usually manage about 3 garage sales. And I got to be fast at every single one of them, because I can't stand up long enough to take a good look at everything. And I'm physically incapable of crouching, and bending over is very painful, so do it as little as possible. And I can't walk while I'm carrying much either. I have to have one hand open at all times to either minimize damage from falling or to grab something to keep from falling, especially at garage sales, because 2 things: there's usually sloped driveways and stuff all over the place, so I have to walk, you know, constantly be on guard that I'm not tripping over all that stuff. And I can't carry much weight in the other hand, or it'll throw off my balance and once again increase the chance that I'm going to fall down. So that's what that's like with picking. Now, there are a couple questions I get asked frequently. Can I feel my missing leg? Yes. I can feel the missing leg. I can feel the missing foot. I can move it around in space by moving the muscles of what I do have there. I do not have phantom toes. I can feel the phantom foot, but I am unable to make the phantom foot move. I only rarely have the phantom pain, though, so I don't take any medication for it, because the medication for it's supposed to ruin your sex drive or sexual ability or whatever. And, you know, pineapple hat. Not that that's real either. But when I do have that pain, it usually tends to happen when I'm laying in bed. Doesn't tend to happen when I'm active. Every once in a while I'll get a horrific stabbing pain while I'm walking, like just somebody stabbed me with a screwdriver. That's always a good one to just suddenly get while I'm walking, but it's rare. And the other thing is, the stump cannot bear any weight. I can't even crawl on my bed using the end of the stump. It can't bear any weight whatsoever. It's not like a foot. A foot has a gazillion bones in it and is designed to take that weight. This has a chopped off femur, or whatever the name of the bone is on the end, and it cannot bear any weight. If I tried to walk on this thing, my bone would come out the end of my leg, which would not be good. Oh yeah, speaking of pineapple hats, I have a bunch of pineapple hats in my store now. I've got both upside down pineapples if you actually are a swinger or you're just into the swinger joke. I've got friendly, more standing up pineapples, and for the confused, I have diagonal or sideways pineapples. Why don't you check them out if you want to support those 8 prosthetic leg sleeves that I'm going to need to get down to a decent weight. All right, hey, that's all I got for today. Hopefully my next video will be more uplifting. You'll see. It'll be in a couple of days. Thanks, and I hope to see you again soon.
See, that's One Foot Flipper's nonsense video.
I've always wondered who my dream boy is. Let's find out.
Hello, I'm Carrie, American Arbitrage. How are you?
Oh my.